public wants this. And I think it's a good thing in the eyes if it goes through.
Well, I think we've already said public wants it because we've had 2 elections and the people who got elected were the people that said they were for it.
But it puts.
But it takes it off us.
Yeah. But it's just.
Yeah.
Yeah, these talk.
Yeah, full house.
Yeah. Because if we're not enough, and I was at the vote.
Nothing today.
Yeah.
Is he? Was he just like, I don't think so. I think let's do it.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Did another dose.
Hold you for a couple of minutes. Hold you to Thanksgiving.
Yeah. It might hold me, but it's not holding me.
You ready? Like to call to order the meeting of the Highlands Town Board of Commissioners for August 15th, 2024. Just one little quick comment. I have a bandage on my ear. President Trump was shot in the ear and thankfully he had a fast recovery. My fate was that I was watching TV last night in my living room and a yellow jacket stung my ear. My head is now going down, but this afternoon it started bleeding. So I might not be at my fastest speed tonight, but we'll do the best to get through everything. Would you now join me in a moment of silence? Thank you. Now, if everyone will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Our next item on the agenda will be a statement of conflict of interest that we post at every meeting. If any board member has any conflict of interest concerning any matter before the board, they must and should declare that conflict. The next item will be public comment, and we have a full house tonight. Just want to say, I know that some people have pointed out that sometimes I'm not consistent with the 3-minute time for public speakers. A lot of times if we have a small gathering and someone goes over the 3 minutes, you know, I've tried to be accommodating and I will do the same tonight, although I do think we have a number of speakers. But that's just a general guideline. But if somebody has something to say that needs to be longer, I'll certainly entertain someone going over the 3 minutes. With that said, I will now open up the floor for public comment. We would appreciate you stating your name for the records so we can include that in the minutes. So I will now open it up for public comment, invite people to come down to the front and make their comment. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Mayor and members of the Board of Commissioners. My name is Mac McCarley. I'm an attorney, and I represent the Highland Neighborhood Coalition. And I'm here tonight to make some comments about the Planning Board discussion of the amortization proposal that you sent to them for review. To prepare for that, I've read the article that reported their discussions. I've read the Planning Board minutes that are included in your agenda packet, and I've talked to citizens who attended that meeting to get their recollections. By all accounts, the discussion centered on the threat of litigation and the potential costs to the town. The minutes of the meeting indicate that there was a recognition that the town's comprehensive plan supports regulation of STRs in neighborhoods, but despite that policy guidance, the planning board voted to recommend denial based on other concerns. Based on my 47 years of experience in North Carolina municipal law, including 17 years as the Charlotte City Attorney, I believe there are three things wrong with the recommendation that you are receiving from the planning board. First, they didn't analyze the proposal from a land use point of view. And more specifically, they didn't base their recommendation on the adopted policy in the comprehensive plan. In fact, they acknowledged the adopted policy and then ignored it. Second, they focused on the threat of litigation and a concern over potential costs. Those issues are issues that are solely the province of the Board of Commissioners, not the Planning Board. Third, by ignoring their land use planning role and focusing instead on litigation and cost issues, they have deprived you of a recommendation based on land use policies and the adopted policies of the town. In light of those deficiencies, we believe that the best course of action for the Board of Commissioners is to simply ignore the Planning Board's report and make your own best decision based on your view of town policy and what's best for the citizens and for the town. The history of zoning in America is to separate incompatible uses. That's why industry is zoned away from commercial activity and commercial activity is zoned away from residential activity. Short-term rentals are both a commercial use, intruding on the quiet enjoyment of residential neighborhoods, but they're also a noise, traffic, trash, and light pollution nuisance in neighborhoods, and they devalue and disturb adjacent properties. Any analysis of this STR issue, which is based on good land use principles and based on the town's adopted comprehensive plan, will conclude that short-term rentals should not be allowed in single-family neighborhoods. The coalition would ask that you base your decision and your deliberations on sound land use principles that preserve neighborhoods and ignore the planning board's recommendation, which is grounded in a misunderstanding of their proper role in a land use decision. Finally, I want to note that the Institute for Justice continues to distort North Carolina case law in an effort to make the community believe that amortization is not a lawful technique for addressing land use nuisances. They're simply wrong. North Carolina Supreme Court ruled in favor of amortization in the one case that came before them, and they have consistently refused to review any of the Court of Appeals cases that have upheld amortization. Their refusal to hear those Court of Appeals cases means that the decision of the Court of Appeals stands and has precedential value. To be blunt, the Supreme Court did not take those cases up because they were satisfied with the result. That is the state Supreme Court having basically said the existing law on amortization is satisfactory to them. At your public hearing on the amortization proposal, the Highlands Neighborhood Coalition will present to you a detailed analysis of the case law to refute the distorted analysis that the Institute for Justice has been selling. Thank you for the opportunity to make comments to you tonight. And I have printed copies of these comments that I will give to the town manager for distribution to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, do we have any other public comment? If anyone would like to make a public comment.
Mr. Mayor, Board, Tucker Chambers, the Chambers Realty and Vacation Rentals. I'm sorry, I'm not an attorney, but I've been doing vacation here for over 40 years.
Would you mind pulling the, thank you.
I've been doing vacation rental for over 40 years, and I have had one problem as far as vacation rentals. It's hearsay about wedding problems and noise in the neighborhood. COVID just came through a couple of years ago, and of course, there was a lot of traffic and noise and that sort of thing, but now it's settled down. And why you take someone's rights away, what they would do with their private property, I don't know. It's the rights of people to do with their property what they wish. Some people just want to ignore it and just see what their neighbors are doing. And I call those peeping Toms. I'm really upset about this. I've been upset about this for years. As far as the planning board and what the recommendation is, I don't know why you have a board if you're not going to listen to them. I mean, I think two people have resigned because of that. And if you go back to the same old situation, like I say, if this coalition thing goes to court, I've been doing this for 4 years and there's not been any problem. Some of the new people in town might think there is, but like I say, this is just a hearsay. If there's the police chief even says how many times that have they gone to see visit or somebody because of the noise or whatever problem. 15 times in 2 years or something, that's no reason to shut the system down. I think I asked you last week if you could give the tourism dollars for 2000, 2001, 2002, and 2023. And what percentage the town gets money back for that tourism dollars. I think that'll settle the situation as far as this is not a tourism town. But we need to have those facts. But I appreciate your concern and your thoughtfulness, and I appreciate you listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Tucker. Any other public comment?
Mike King here in Mirror Lake. I am a full-time resident of Highlands. And I do not want and do not intend for my comments tonight to be viewed as either pro or con on the issue of STR, but rather on the recent tone of the arguments and the manner in which they have been published. I'm sure all of you saw the newspaper of August 8th, the Highlands newspaper, free paper, in which it had an article which was taken directly from the website of the Institute of Justice, which is a group that is a proponent, an advocate for a special interest group in this town. And I think rather unprofessionally, these two lawyers, having been a lawyer myself for decades, in recovery now, but the way they chose to phrase your actions as promoting a scheme, which is defined as a devious way or intent to do something illegal, as if you intended to do something illegal. I took umbrage at that as a voting member of the town and citizen, that they would accuse those of you that we elected, we who can vote, we elected you, we think you look out for our best interest. And I did not appreciate, nor do I like the fact that they would categorize your comments like your actions like that. And I think each of you deserves an apology. In addition, I think that the paper acted unresponsibly and against the journalist code by placing a hit piece or an opinion piece as an article of news in the upper right left corner of the front page of the paper where everybody would see it, and making sure that the word scheme hit the front page. So that to me also was offensive, because one of the things in the journalistic code, in fact, one of the principal things is that a journalist, a true journalist, has to deny favored treatment to special interests. So I didn't like that. And like I said, I'm not picking on SDRs, but the tone of this argument has to get a little more decent. I, as a lawyer, would have said the town board misconstrued or they misinterpreted or something like that. But for a lawyer to come out and use the word scheme, that's just unprofessional. I never would have done it, and I'm sorry to see that they're playing that game.
Thank you, Mike. Do we have any other further public comment?
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and Board of Commissioners. My name is Amber.
Eric Cahill.
We are the Cahills. We've been visiting Highlands for 20 years. We purchased up here about 13 years ago. Recently, we've purchased a property on Carolina Way, the end space on Carolina Way, and we're under contract on the building that is currently Satula Brewing. So we have not closed on that yet. So my ask tonight is for the mayor and the board of commissioners to allow Josh and Michael to change the current brew pub special use permit. The ordinance does not allow offsite brewing right now. So I would like a change in the Unified Development Ordinance to allow tap rooms as a use under the brew pub definition without having to brew on site. I have spent countless hours with Josh, Michael Mathis, both Town of Highlands, Bobby Bishop with Macon County, Bobby Henry, Macon County. They've included Sissy. I have spoken with Buzz about this as well. We've looked at all the current special use permits and ordinances, and none of them allow beer to be served in the brewery room without it being brewed, and 25% of sales to be from the actual brewed beer on site. So under the new ownership, this brew pub can exist because 25% of the sales have to be brewed on site, which we don't want to do. We want to move all that off. It's not safe right now. The space is not big enough. You can't operate under the private club ordinance because Article 9 would not allow but only 18 members due to the parking, Article 9. You can't operate under a restaurant because North Carolina ABC requires a large percentage of the sales to be food versus alcohol. And then again, Article 9 for a restaurant would only allow for 15 seats total in the restaurant. Also, you can't lease spaces off-site for designated parking because there is not a covenant on file for Carolina Way. So that means every unit owns their own spaces. So there's really no way around any of the current ordinances right now to operate as a brew pub. So with all of the hours I've spent right now, we're looking at the benefits of being able to open it as a brew pub and bring the beer in and have a gathering spot. So this would create another social gathering spot for tourists and locals. We could partner with other local businesses to have food brought in, bringing more business into the town, partnering with other businesses. There would be a variety and more diversified beer selection from various local and regional breweries. Be another spot for charity events for the town. And then if you're green, if the beer is brewed off-site, all the waste of the brewery being brewed on site would not be going into the sewage system of the town of Highlands. So again, my ask of the Board of Commissioners is to allow Josh and Michael to put pen to paper and change the current brew pub ordinance to allow a tap room that allows beer to be brewed off-site.
Okay. Do you mind if I make a
Sure.
response?
Yeah.
I know you've talked with Josh, and we talked with the attorney and Josh, and this is a board decision. And your request of reviewing that will be done. It might take some time to go through the process of changing the ordinance if that is decided that by the board that should be done. So we'll work with Josh and review your request.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Do we have any other public comment? No further public comment, then we will move on to the next agenda item, and that will be to review and approve the agenda. And I do think Josh Ward has a change in the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, Kay McCann.
Are we allowed to make public comment about the dredging, or is this just about STR?
You could have made, when we had the public comment, you could make any comment you want to make. So we will stop and, ask, does anybody have a public comment? So go right ahead.
Bob Johnston? I live down
Can you
here.
use the microphone, please?
Please.
It doesn't seem to help. I can't hear anything anybody is saying.
Got to get a little closer to it, so.
Okay, well, anyway. My name is Bob Johnston. Hey. I've lived here I've owned property for 40 years, I guess. And I know that you all are doing a lot of hard work on this dredging project. But we were told originally that you were going to dredge all the way up the Mill Creek up to the bridge. You shook your head, sir. Mr. Mayor, you went like this, but I noticed it. Anyway, that was the original plan. And of course, anybody that's been here for 100 years has seen that all of what comes down Mill Creek has ended up becoming a wetlands, right? It's undeniable. People used to ice skate there and swim. People that are my age jumped off the bridge in front of my house and swam. You certainly couldn't do that now. So, and I mean, I've seen it change over my years of being here. So is there a reason why we are not considering dredging through the wetlands up further upstream? Because I don't see that in the plan at this point.
You want me to answer the question?
That's the question. I mean, and also
Or
I
I'll
noticed,
tell you what, when Mr. Gleason makes the presentation, he can address that.
When the presentation comes, we'll
Yeah, we'll-
address that question.
Let him answer that question.
the other thing I noticed in the documentation that I've read is that the plan is to dredge around islands that have been created recently rather than taking them out. So I would wonder, I mean, obviously, if you dredge around in a soft marsh area, that little island is going to collapse pretty quickly. So I wonder why not just take it out and get it over with? So anyway, that's, I guess.
Thank you.
I would personally would love to see you come on up. Who did that? Is it me? I don't know.
Go ahead.
Well, holy God. I'm sorry, I messed up everybody, but anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
The concern is, why not take out some of the stuff that has been created from Mill Creek?
Okay.
What the heck caused that?
Oh, man.
Will there be a time for public comment after the Mirror Lake discussion?
No, sir.
No, okay,
As I've said, public comment is open to anything anybody wants to say. Okay?
Information has been given because we don't get much information. But,
Well, go ahead and express your
Anyway.
concern, sir.
well, I want to tell you a little bit. I'm Paul Barnett. I've been 22 years on Mirror Lake and we're very pleased with all the work the guys have done. It's hard work. It's hard to get things done. I realize that the EPA, the Corps of Engineers have made everything very difficult. But I just want to point out someone in our group here that's an expert. It's not me. But we got a friend here in this neighborhood, a friend of Highlands, a friend of Mirror Lake that has been on the shore of Mirror Lake for 15 years, 16 years. For many years, he was the president and CEO that ran the Strategic Oil Reserves of the United States, CEO at Fluor. And he's the guy we need to put on board. And a lot of people don't want to talk to him. A lot of people on the board don't want to listen to him. This is the guy that's dealt with Congress, the House, EPA, Corps of Engineers, clear water, clean water, all those sort of things. And I think we need to make a position, probably not with you guys, I'm talking with the board of Mirror Lake, really, but a guy that opened a position, a seat for him on the board called Chairman of Dredging and Maintenance or something like that. We can't even get return phone calls, he and I both. And I'm on the dredging committee, haven't had a call in 4 years. And we don't like some of the direction where it's gone. And I'd like to know the answers, why so much has been done in the dark. They say there's the city plan. Mike just told me the city plan was to not do phase 2. I don't know where that plan even came from in the beginning, but that's all I got to say. We got a guy in here, Dan Evans, President and CEO, ran the Strategic Oil Reserves of America. He's dealt with the Corps of Engineers on the highest levels, billion-dollar projects. And we got people that don't want to listen to him and his information, his knowledge. And he's been very successful at it. So I just want to say to the board of Mirror Lake mostly, we got a guy here that's willing to give us this stuff. He would cost more than that engineer if we were to hire him. So please listen to him and give him a chance, okay? That's what I
Thank you. Any other comments? Last chance. Hearing none, we'll move on now and resume the next item, which is to review and approve the agenda. And Mr. Ward, you had a change to the agenda?
Mr. Mayor, Kay McCann with the chamber contacted me and said the chamber was not ready to present the Highlands 150th celebration events that they have planned yet. It will be probably a couple more months before they're ready. So that needs to be struck, number 15.
Okay. All right. Any other changes?
Move we approve the agendas amended.
Okay. Second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye and raising your hand.
Aye.
Thank you. All right. Our next item would be the approval of the July 18th regular meeting minutes. Do we have any changes, clarifications, or additions to those minutes?
Make a motion to approve the July 18th meeting minutes.
Second.
Second. All in favor, please raise your hand, signify by saying aye. Thank you very much. The next item will be the reports. We'll start with the mayor's report. I have gotten some feedback from people about a residential tree ordinance. That was something that our town attorney discussed with us at the last meeting. I'll continue to process that and work with the staff and see if there are any options that the board would want to consider. The other thing I had the pleasure of doing was swearing in 2 new police officers out of basic law enforcement training this month. Chief, would you mind identifying the officers that will be joining us?
We've had the pleasure of hiring a young man who is in the National Guard for the last 6 years, Hunter Hudson, as well as Diego Perez. He's got a 4-year degree through criminal justice. And one thing I would like to say about him is, as most of you know, we have a large percentage, simply because that's the way it worked out, of 40% females. So with hiring Diego, I feel like we're bridging those gaps and then hoping to continue to bridge gaps between the public and law enforcement. So we're very pleased to have both these young men. Thank you.
And Chief, and this is part of our program of transitioning new officers in with retiring officers.
Correct.
Coming up this year, and it'll keep us at full staff.
Yes, so we don't run into being 50% down like we were for the last year.
Okay, thank you very much. All right. The next item would be the commissioner's report. Does any commissioner have anything they'd like to report? Yes, sir.
Couple of things. All right, so the first one is playground fundraising continues. I did bring some brochures and donation envelopes in the back there if anybody wants to take a look at those. They're back there by right as you go out the door there. So next week we're gonna finally go live with our website. We recognize that we might be missing some smaller donations by not having a PayPal account. So that's going to go live sometime next week. And we're working with the Rotary Club of Highlands to accept PayPal donations. That website's going to be highlandsplay.net. So we'll learn whether we received the $500,000 Partif grant on August 23rd. Right now, we have total funds in hand is approximately $900,000 of the $1.6 million that's needed to build the playground. So through the fall, we have a couple donor parties planned that I feel like is going to help us raise some more of the funds we need. And finally, this Saturday night, the Twilight 5K is going to be held, and the proceeds from that event is going to go to the playground. So there's plenty of spots left. I talked to Derek Taylor on Tuesday, and so far we have over 200 runners signed up. And then the other thing, I've got one other thing I want to mention, and that's the Town of Highlands Scholarship Golf Tournament registration is now open. an information document was sent to all town businesses to generate interest in the event. You can sign up to play as a team, and then there's also sponsorship opportunities available. And I just want to say thanks to the Bryson family. This year's really shaping up to be a really nice event, and we're going to raise more money this year than we have any events in the past. So just one thing, I think I'm kind of passionate about this, the scholarship program, and to think that this is a program that started in 1975. So like next year is going to be the 50th anniversary of, one, the golf event, and then two, the scholarship program. So I think that's pretty cool.
I didn't know that. That's great. Thank you. Any other commissioners' reports? Hearing none, I'll ask the town manager, Josh Ward, to give his report.
Mr. Mayor, I don't have a report.
Okay. One item I was gonna, just make a point. We've talked with the folks that are the contractors on Big Bear Pen. The latest information we received was that sometimes next week, possibly on the 19th, they'll actually start paving that road. That means for a couple of days, there might be some detours and disruptions, but that project is nearing completion. All right. The next item, item 8, will be the consent agenda. Do we have any questions concerning this packet of the consent agenda?
Motion to approve as presented.
Second. All in favor, please raise your hand, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, item number 9, short-term rental amortization discussion. And I've asked Michael Mathis, our zoning director, who works with the planning board, to come and make a report. Michael?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So on July 22nd, 2024, the Town of Highlands Planning Board reviewed the proposed Unified Development Ordinance Amendment regarding the amortization of the non-conforming short-term rentals in the R1 and R2 residential zoning districts. Although they agreed that the proposed text amendment is consistent with the town's community plan, their recommendation was to deny the amortization amendment. The minutes from this meeting are in this month's Planning and Development Department report, and the staff recommendation tonight is to set a public hearing for the proposed UDO text amendment.
Okay. And let me point out, your recommendation is simply based on the process. We put it to the planning board, and now the next step would be to have a public hearing. And after that, the town board would make a decision on which way to go with amortization, correct?
Yes, sir. I believe we should have a public hearing before something like a text or map amendment is approved or denied.
And let me point out, I did read the minutes of the planning board, and I was kind of surprised, but they did make a motion to take public comment at that time. So people pro and con on the short-term rentals had a chance to speak about the issue to the planning board, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Bob, would you like to add anything about that meeting? I know you sat in on it.
Not really, Mayor. There was, as Mr. McCarley said, there was some discussion about possible liability. I know I have been informed that when this was before the planning board 2 years ago, that some members had expressed some concern about potential personal liability. And I assured them that that was an extremely, extremely low risk. I just didn't see it as a possibility. I believe I did share with them, again, just full information. You all are familiar with the letter, and what I just learned tonight was a newspaper column from the Institute for Justice. And given past experience I had with them in Wilmington, I'm confident that there will be litigation if you move forward. That's not a reason for you not to decide to adopt an amortization provision if you think that's the right policy. I just want folks to not be surprised if and when that happens. So that's really all I have to add.
Okay, thank you. Bob, I wanted to ask you a question about this. We got that. I wanted to ask Bob a question. Some people have been talking about that the town should put this issue of amortization to a referendum on the ballot. What's your opinion on that, and what is the legal options that we have on that?
Yeah, there is no general legal authority to hold referendums on ordinances. You may be familiar with certain subjects that state law requires a referendum. For example, general obligation bonds require a vote and approval by the voters before issuing GO bonds. In addition, there's some authority for referendum in the context of ABC law changes or decisions at the local level. But there's no statewide authority for referendum. And I've reviewed your town charter. There is nothing in your town charter that gives you the authority to put a question like that to a vote of the public.
Okay.
Conceivably, the General Assembly could authorize it. I'm aware of at least one North Carolina municipality that has provision in their charter, but there's no statewide authority and there is nothing authorizing it in Highlands charter.
So to do that, we would have to go to the state legislature and request authorization to move forward with the referendum, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Michael, do you have anything else to add?
No, sir. Just that we set a public hearing.
Okay. And does the town board have any questions?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, many times we'll have a public hearing during our regular board meeting, and I think that's not going to be conducive to having one here because of all the number of people who would like to speak to it. So I think we have to have a 2-week notice period. And so the next step is to set a public hearing for the land use plan change for SDRs. And 2 weeks, it's 5 weeks to our next town board meeting, I believe. And so if we set it 3 weeks from now, that gives us time to advertise it for 2 weeks, and then they'll have 2 weeks to read all the comments that will come in, written comments, and then make a decision at the September meeting.
So we'd have a standalone public hearing one night. We would take no action, just listen and read the comments, and then at the next board meeting,
Right.
Make a
Right,
decision.
because there's some people that may not be here and want to have written comments, and that gives us an opportunity to look at all those too.
Okay.
And that would put us into like September 5th, if you would do it a Thursday night. I know Thursdays are usually open for this building, is that right? And other times are not. That's why we usually do it Thursday nights. Is that okay, Lester, as far as you know, the 5th of September?
So I will check that information. Okay.
So I would make the motion that we set a public hearing for the 5th of September at 7 o'clock for the hearing of the UDO amendments concerning STRs.
I'll second that motion.
Second. Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of setting the hearing, please signify by raising your hand, signify and say aye.
Aye.
And opposed?
Aye.
Okay, we have 4 for the hearing, public hearing, and 1 opposed.
And what was the time of that? 10?
7
o'clock. Mhm.
Mayor, if I could.
Okay, go ahead.
In reference to the referendum, can that not be had by gathering enough signatures to put it on the ballot from the public?
No.
Okay.
Answer your question.
Pretty simple question.
Okay. All right.
Mayor, if I could. In addition to setting the public hearing, I think you need to, you could either do it later, but you need to call a special meeting for that purpose for that date as well.
A special meeting for the public hearing?
Correct. So technically, all you did was agree to hold a public hearing, but you need to also call a special meeting on that day. Just a simple motion to call a special meeting on September 5th at whatever time you set for the purpose of holding the public hearing would be in order.
Thank you very much, Bob. And
I'll make a motion that we hold a special meeting on September 5th at 7 o'clock in this building to have a public hearing.
okay,
Second.
second. All in favor, please signify by raising your hand, saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed. Okay. Very good. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Mayor.
Our next item is the Mount Laurie construction site issues. The homeowners association asked to be put on the agenda. And I'm going to ask representatives from the homeowners association to come forward and present their concerns.
Hi, I'm Deandra Mundy and I'm a little nervous. Never done this
Take your
before.
time.
So, okay,
You
You can sit down.
you can sit
I'd
down.
rather stand if it's okay. Can you
Okay.
hear me?
Yeah, that's why you need to sit down so you can
Okay.
speak into the
All right.
mic.
All right, I need a little help. If you all can give me a little encouragement with this, that would be great. Can you all start doing? Come on. My name is Deandra and I'm here to say, I'm president of Mount Laurie's HOA. My neighbors and I are here tonight because of issues stemming from two construction sites. It began, you see, way back in 2023 when a builder bought lots number 12 and 14. Well, when the rains come down, their rocks and silt fill our pipes are coming from these two construction sites. City workers clear our ditches and are quick to pitch in, but I'm sure that they're tired of us calling in and complaining. But wait, there's more. Our HOA keeps a praying, but these weekly frustrations keep messing up our haven. Just a minute. Backing into fences and stuck delivery trucks, blocking up our road. Things keep running amok. Things, they've been working after hours and speeding on our street. It's gotten so bad we had to call in the heat. The Highlands police, we are proud to say, have come to our rescue and to save the day. Know that you're loved and that we back the blue. We want you to know we appreciate you. So tonight we're here to thank the Highlands finest. Our other cops and city workers are the best and the kindest. You all are awesome, and that's a fact. Now my time is up, and I guess that's a wrap.
Thank you.
Next is Bob Smith, who is our former president of Mount Laurie HOA.
How can you follow that, Bob?
I'm not going to. Thank you for hearing us
There,
tonight.
would you get close to the microphone? Thank you.
How's that? I have hearing aids. I'm afraid it's going to do that crazy
Okay.
thing again. So, I'm Bob Smith. My wife, Pam, and I live in Braselton, Georgia. And during initial visits up here with family, we fell in love with Highlands. So much that in 2013, we bought a home in the charming Mount Laurie Drive area there. We actually use it as our getaway. A lot of people do that. We're 2 hours away, so we can get up here and enjoy the Highlands lifestyle. We even hung a sign in our room, in our home, that says rest, relax, renew, because it reflects how we feel and why we come up here. Unfortunately, for my wife and myself and our Mount Laurie homeowners, over the past year and a half, we've not been able to live up to that rest, relax, renew. Back in 2023, I was HOA president. The builder began grading on lots 12 and 14. There is no 13. These 12 and 14 are adjacent. And began grading and cutting the driveways on those lots. That dramatically altered the way that stormwater runoff has been routed down Mount Laurie since it was constructed. It changed it altogether, and it's created multiple problems for us. We tried to work with them when they first got there and set things up to help slow that water down, to slow it down, cut down the speed, because it's ramping down some steep lots. They're about 30-foot drop from the back of the lot to the street. And when you clear those lots, you have some problems. And what we did, let me give you a picture to begin with. Before those lots were cleared, both of them were vegetated and leaves. And when the rainwater fell, it seeped down and went into the drain that took the water under Mount Laurie Drive and spread it out over the mountainside. Well, that's not the case anymore, because now when they've cut two lots that are going to force a lot of water down Mount Laurie Drive, now they've got a chute all the way down the east side. Now we have a west side and the east side of our drains coming down. When that water comes down, all the lots are on the east side. When it comes down there, one of the things we have to say is the drainage on that side was never set up. to take that volume and that force and the speed of water. The water used to drain. Now before, yeah, it came down slowly. We know when you clear the lots, it's going to come down a lot faster. But doing that, we wonder who approved the plans to dump that on one side that was never designed to carry the water. One of the things is it gets down to the lower part of the Mount Laurie Drive, and all of a sudden it gets kicked back onto the street. There's no way for it to go down the mountainside to take it off the mountain. And we're wondering, how did that happen? So what we got for over 12 months was on the west side, we had the street, the drains washing out. There were 3 feet washouts. It was cutting under the asphalt. Now, thankfully, we've got that fixed. I'll talk about that a little bit later. We also had driveways, personal driveways with the gravel. It would clog up, jump over, and wash the gravel off. Driveways. These are personal things that are happening to people that just own Mount Laurie and had nothing to say, like, help us, don't mess up our yards. On the east side, we've got a big problem. All the water from lots 14 and 12 now have to come down that side. 30-foot drop, a lot of water, cleared land, a lot of dirt's coming down there too. It's clogged up our drains on the east side, back onto the streets. At the bottom of the street, when it jumped back out, we have 2 homes where it ran down their driveways and into the garages. They're getting damaged because of this. Who's to blame? Is it the person who signed off that their stormwater runoff plan was okay? We wonder if they ever came over to Mount Laurie, because if you drive in and you look at the ditches coming down, you say, well, where does the water go from right here? It goes on the street, it goes into those houses. So we have a concern, first of all, the approval of that, of stormwater runoff. And it repeated, by the way. We tried to work with the builders to get them to stop. They'd put up a Band-Aid approach. It would work for maybe one rain, a heavy rain, not the low light ones, and not a monsoon like we get up here sometimes. It would work, and then it would break again. And then we'd have to go back and go back. We went back so many times that we finally got tired of going back, and we called in the town and said, you got to help us more. I would like to give a big thank you to Michael Mathis. Michael, when we alerted him and showed him photographs and videos of all the damage being done, he immediately came over and took charge. Now, we found out that when you give these builders attention on the warnings and fines, now you get things done. Things are promising. We're not there yet, Mike. We got a long way to go, but they're promising because he shut down the worst one of all. Lot 12 was so steep, and they had water from lot 14 coming into it. So we had 2 lots worth coming down that. He shut that down for the time being. That's helped a whole heck of a lot. And some other things he's had them do. But he had to fine them. The warnings they didn't care about. And it's got to the point, what does a warning mean anymore? We'd like to look at if you would toughen up that process of how you give warnings and how many you give before you actually start doing the fines. The other person I'd like to thank is Lamar Nix. When we looked at the drains on the west side that were being washed out, we knew we had to work because we were worried that we would get off with our tire on the edge and fall over it, and we're stuck because we have big trucks that come down Mount Laurie. It's not wide, but when they come down, you have to get over as far as you can. Thank you, Lamar. We got the west side fixed right now. But we are concerned that the east side, where does the water go? All this extra water from lots 12 and 14 that wasn't coming down our way before, it was going off the mountain or another way, is now going to ruin our east side. It's got to get off the mountain somewhere, and it doesn't. And Lamar and I have talked about this, about how to do it. We're going to have to come back to the town to get more involvement and some okays to cut some type of drainage to take it off the mountain and not stick back on the road. So those are the 2 things I'd like to ask of the town as we close. Number 1, we want Michael back over there. We want him on them to look at what their plans are for landscape and their stormwater runoff from those 2 lots to make sure they're not going to overwhelm our east side detention or drains until we can get those fixed. Can we do some more retention on site to hold the volume back? Can we do some more stuff up there to slow it down when it does come out so we won't get washed away on the east side. The second thing we need to do is for you to help us find an engineer, more work with Lamar to come up with a plan to get that water off the mountain once it gets down part way down Mount Laurie Drive and not onto the streets and into those two homeowners' driveways and garages. So those are the things we hope you will consider and help us get through this thing, because we're hurting over there and we love this community. We love Highlands. So I thank you very much for the time.
Thank you.
My name's Wanda Drake, and I live on Mount Laurie, number 390.
Would you pull the microphone a little closer?
Sure, sure. And I want all of you on the board to stop for just a minute and think about why you moved to Highlands, why you've lived here in Highlands, what it means to you, the peace and the solitude. And it's a way to escape the whole world and what's going on in the world when you come to your home and it's your refuge. It hasn't been like that for Gary and me. Now, I'm going to speak for Gary now, right now. I know the whole neighborhood is just hurting like crazy, but I want you to know for the past almost 2 years, Gary and I have had to leave our home for 2 separate times, 30 days each time, to get away from the noise and the construction. We left our home, our peace and our solitude that was supposed to be in Highlands, but we left it and moved to another area for 30 days, hoping that we could get away from some of the construction. It has been unbearable. I called the builder and I asked the builder if he would please listen to me and listen to the complaints that I had. And he told me, he said, "Lady, I don't give a blank what you say and what you care." He said, "I don't have time for you." And I hung up on him because he was starting to be really belligerent then. And at that point, we were calling 911 like crazy. And we have had so many 911 calls. And thank you to the police department. Oh my God, the police department has been our savior. 911 in Macon County and the non-emergency number and the police department have saved our lives because we call after hours when they're working. One night they worked, it's supposed to be 6 o'clock, the cutoff. They worked until 7:30 and they were loud and belligerent. And we called the police. They came out. The police came out and they stopped. They stopped for just a few minutes. After the police left, they started back up again. And then Tom and Janie Bean on our street, they had to call the police. And Tom says, "I'm going to stand right here." And he said, "I would like very much for you to go down to the bottom of the hill and sit there and wait and see if they come down." And that's the only way that the construction crew left then. It's been horrible. And well, I made a list here. The profanity that comes from the lots. These workers don't know that I know how to speak Spanish. They don't know that I know what they're saying. And honest to God, it would make you blush, all the men right now, if you knew what those workers were out there saying on a daily basis. And we're confronted with this. We can't even have company over anymore because we're scared to death of what these people are going to be saying and doing out next to our lot. And I'm going to save the worst for last. On several occasions, I have walked out on our screen porch, and between our screen porch and the new constructions, there are some hedges and bushes. And I will tell you that I have gotten full frontal, I don't know how to say this full frontal peeing. I mean, they do it right in front of us. And backside, they're dumping on our lot. Literally, they use our lot for dumping. And it is not a pretty sight. I told Josh about it, and Josh said, "We'll take a picture of it." I can't get to my phone that fast to take a picture, and I don't know, quite frankly, if I'd want that trash on my phone. It is just unbelievable. They are thumbing their nose at all of you and all of law enforcement and the building and planning and codes commissioners. They're thumbing their noses at you. And what can we do about it? What can we do about it? We can't have anybody over to our house for fear that they're going to pull their pants down and use the bathroom right there in the backyard in full sight. Can you do anything to help us out? I mean, in addition to what's going on with the rest of the neighborhood, we have elderly people that love to take a walk in the evenings. We have people that walk their dogs. We now have a new baby on the street, a sweet little new baby that strolled all the time. And we're afraid that with the speeding on our street, that we've got so many curves, they're going to cut around a curve and they're going to hit somebody one day. They're really going to hit somebody. There's so many things that are going wrong with this construction company and lot 12 and lot 14. And I'm begging you for some relief in our neighborhood. We need it really, really bad. And if you can't do anything about them finishing the construction in a speedy manner, then please, by all means, find them for what they're doing wrong and the things that are going on there. It's unbearable for almost 2 years nonstop. I ask you, please.
Thank you.
Okay. Can I ask some questions?
Sure.
Oh, and Sissy, is Chief Highlands still here? Oh, okay. Can you please get an accurate account of the 911 calls?
I've got it.
Oh, okay.
It's one of the things I was going to discuss. I'm Gary Drake. I got a few suggestions and few comments. We've had at least 24 911 calls made to get things stopped. What I forgot about, one night they were there till 9:30 at night working. Okay. When I was on the Board of Commissioners years ago, one of the biggest problems we had was false alarms. Most of it was coming out of one of the country clubs. The board initiated, after one false alarm per year, it was $100. If it's police, it's $200. If it's fire, that's shrank that way, way down. I mean, almost to null. I don't know what you find this guy, if you find him, but that's the only way to get things to happen. And Mary, you know, the only way we can stop the tractor trailers from coming up the gorge is to get a big fat fine out there.
Correct.
So the board needs to discuss what they're going to do to these builders. You know, you as the board are set there to protect us residents, then protect the businesses, protect the employees of the town. I feel like you're not protecting the residents when you let a contractor do this time and time and time again. He doesn't care. And he's building a lot of houses in this town. And I wouldn't buy one of the houses. I built houses. I built a lot of houses. There's no way I'd buy one from him that he built. I don't think, and I know it's Michael, part of it's yours, but it's the county that has to do a lot of this stuff. But we need to control it somehow better than to go on by and say, now you need to stop that or we're going to fine you. He doesn't care what the fine is. Just like the chief sent up, they issued a lot of warning tickets to speeding. I can understand why they can't give the speeding because there's not enough distance. That did slow them down. That helped. But this builder could care less about what's going on. I'm making a lot of money, so you find me a couple of bucks. Who cares? The board needs to discuss what they're going to do, especially he's building other places. He's building for a friend of mine over on Lake Sequoia. There's several places that he's building. One thing that got us really riled up, he's thinking about buying the lot that's next to us, next to those two houses he's building right now. So we need to do something to get him under control. Thank you very much for your time. Questions? You have a question?
You go ahead.
Gary, what's the name of the construction company?
Do we name them?
Curated, right? Please. Yeah, curated.
Curated.
Curated? Yeah.
Curated communities.
You know, where they're down there at Cross and Dustis.
I had a couple questions, Gary, or whoever,
Yeah.
the previous president. You said 2 lots were cleared. Were they entirely cleared or they're separated?
No, they're separated, but no, they didn't strip them. They just cleared what they needed to
And
build the
they're
house.
half-acre lots?
One is 0.61, one's 0.57. And I'm very concerned about the one that's 0.61 because when he originally talked to him, when he first started clearing the lots, okay, on the 0.67, which is, that's the lower lot, is that 12? Bob, is that 12? Yeah, 12. He said, I'm gonna build a house and a two-car garage. He said, I can't put a two-car garage on the other lot because it's not big enough. But he's put a two-car garage on that lot. And this made me think of one other thing. I can't know it's the truth, but I had two contractors tell me that he is on a restricted contractor's license. Plus, he didn't have one until 8 months ago at all. A restricted contractor license restricts him to $750,000 house building. So I don't know whether that's true, but I think the town ought to, since he fooled the county and start, I mean, 8 months, he's been building for 2 years and 8 months ago he got a license. Something's way wrong.
I was thinking in our stormwater design things, if you're doing an acre, but it's not a complete acre.
No.
So it's 2 half-acre lots and it's part of each one of those lots, even though, as you said, 14 is draining onto 12, and so it comes off of one lot.
Yeah, well, it comes a lot off, comes off.
So
14
they
too.
weren't required to do a stormwater design on that. Is that correct, Michael? Because it's under an acre.
Because it's under an acre.
Otherwise, it would have been a stormwater design. Is Mount Laurel a private road or is it a town?
No, it's a town road.
Town road?
Mhm. It was built as a private and given to the town years
Okay.
ago.
So it's
Yeah.
ours. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
Yeah,
in
we
the-
are a critical watershed, so it doesn't make any difference.
Let-
Doesn't
let-
make-
Not from the stormwater perspective.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, let me just say one thing. Michael is our zoning director and he spends a lot of time in the office. And when he's not there and people won't see him, they get upset. We are in the process of creating a new position that we've even advertised where we're going to put someone in the field who will monitor all of these issues constantly. So we're not shorthanded. That's one
Yeah.
thing we're going to do. I wanted to ask Bob a question. Bob, are there any restrictions on the fines that we can put on construction projects that violate certain codes and ordinances? And the reason I'm asking Bob, a lot of times we have state statutes that say, well, you can only charge $50 a violation.
Right, yeah.
Bob?
I don't believe there's any limit on the amount of civil penalties you can assess for a violation of a local ordinance. If it's enforced criminally, state law does limit the possible consequences of criminal enforcement.
Okay. Let me answer this, Bob. If there was a violation and there was a hefty fine, does it become a lien against the contractor or that property if it isn't satisfied at a certain point in time?
Mayor, we'd have to take a look at how the ordinance is written right now, and certainly willing to put my head together with Michael and Josh to come up with some alternatives to strengthen the enforcement options. But off the top of my head, I can't make a suggestion.
I will say that years ago that the town required a house to be torn down on Mount Laurel because they were they were too close to the property line. And
Right.
but the fine, getting people's pockets seems like the only way to do it. Or the other thing is, I suggest is, and I went to the state, I'm no lawyer, I don't know where it's at. I tried to find it, but I didn't find anywhere that a town cannot restrict somebody from building within their town limits. I may be totally wrong, but it is a suggestion that, not that you want to stop him from building other people's houses, but at least to give you an option of straightening him up.
Okay.
So I guess there's 2 problems. It's stormwater and then there's the nuisance, construction, speeding, all that stuff. So the disruption to the neighborhood, but then there's the stormwater too. So the stormwater, apparently we didn't require a stormwater plan because they weren't big enough disturbed acreages. Lamar had figured out how to take care of the stormwater?
First of all, it's the west side, we'll take care of the east side. What is developed, it's kind of over decades. People have built all the development down the street. Some of the driveway paths are small. Some of the development for water used to shut off the side of the mountain. Now it's the garden being built from along the mountain. Kicks more back to the road, keep down the next thing. I suggest just benefits nature way. They get together with some of the people live this one particular stretch. Sometimes needs to light up a storm drain to do like a long problem, like the discharge of water away from the road. Right now, it's running. Basically, it's the construction side, almost down to the partner. It's not quite almost. That's too far. Naturally, what we do, after we do sheet it off. Well, one house at a time at a time is big. Dig some mountains on that particular side of the road.
What I like to propose is that Mark and meet with our HOA, talk about options, to get that water. You got several different ways you get us talking about, but you know, it's the town's responsibility since it's, you know, water coming out to take that water away, or you're actually a homeowner to that. That's the question. It's our responsibility as a homeowner to cut that trench, or the town can help us.
I can't enter private property.
So if we got some agreements, if we have agreements between some homeowners and the town, that they would allow the town to do it, that'd be something.
You don't have a right of way or?
Construction needs, of course, doing whatever. And that could be a plan at the end.
And we meet with you then just to work that out.
Sure.
But we got it.
Okay.
Yes.
Like to ask one question.
Go back street down home, so.
Like Lamar said, it goes all the way from the top of the mountain down, and it goes out into North Powell and on 64. Any given day, you can ride up and down 64, and there's gravel all over the place. And there's gonna be a motorcycle accident or whatever there. It's really, really bad. It's really bad.
I'd like to ask the town manager one question, if I may.
Well, I was going to defer to, I know, Josh.
It's the same thing, but.
They've been
Yeah,
out
Josh.
work trying to address this week, so go ahead.
The town has spent a lot of man hours up there cleaning up that mess. Are we being the town, are we giving the builder a bill for this? Or is the town absorbing it?
Well, we've been absorbing it up to now, but I can obviously talk to Bob about that when we discuss the fines.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
And just like Amy was saying, and we talked about it for a while, and I've been talking about it for a while. The fines for especially erosion control, which is really what we're talking about. We're talking about two different things.
Right, yeah.
And the erosion control, we need to work on a fine structure. And I will tell you, the thing that's tricky about that is if we get a 50-year storm, most things are not set up for that. And it has to be written so that if that actually happens, just for instance, I do have a site right now out of town that is being built, and we actually have to monitor the amount of water. We have rain gauges out there. We have to have a filed report, et cetera, because we've opened up 4 acres. So, that's a lot of land.
Yeah.
I know, but because of that, so it has to be monitored, et cetera. So there has to be some guide that you can use biological station information or whatever the case might be, just to make sure that you don't find somebody for doing it right. Now, let me, I'm not trying to make any excuses for what's up there, trust me. But what I will say is, and of course, I'm in this business in Highlands for the past 31 years. I'm not a builder, I design the homes, but we follow the construction. So I work with a lot of contractors and a lot of grading contractors, and I have yet to find a grading contractor that I find as a respectable one that are perfectly fine with increasing fines. They don't have an issue.
Yeah.
They really don't, because they don't because it gives everybody a bad name. Good grading contractors getting a bad name from the ones that are not doing it right.
Right.
And I have been up your road about 5 times in the past 3 weeks. I've gotten phone calls from one of those houses at the bottom that the silt comes into her driveway and gets in her garage, and looked at the whole situation. I went up there with other people that know much more than I do looking at it. So Lamar pointed out some things, and I do think it's going to have to be a joint effort at some point to correct the situation. The fact that they're building, the amount of clearing they did is really, I mean, I realize it's problematic from a community standpoint because it used to be naturally wooded. But they, just like everybody else, they have full right to do so. But then they do need to control that. They do need to check it. They need to keep the silt on their property. I 100% agree. And if they don't, fine accordingly, but make it hurt. If you can have an offense, understand things happen. But on the second one, the third one, keep it ramping up, just like it is with the trucks coming up the gorge. As far as the nuisance goes, same thing I think should apply. We've actually expanded our construction hours. But I think those should be, to Saturdays, but we need to find them, make it hurt. I mean, first offense, third offense, second offense, third offense, keep it ramping up.
Been out on Sundays.
Well, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Call 911 on Sundays.
Yeah.
They come out and they start.
And I understand.
It helped with the false alarms.
Right. No, I remember
I got
that.
a real good friend that after the first year to put it in, she called me up and said, Gary, I got a $500 bill from the town for false alarms. Why? I said, because you didn't fix your alarm.
Right. Yeah. When it gets big enough,
the whole thing, fix it and you won't get fined.
Right. When it gets big enough, they'll fix the problem.
Take that.
Well, I'd like to see us explore it personally.
And thank you for coming and making us aware. And I will say this, there's some other neighborhoods like up on Holt Circle,
Yeah.
Circle
that
who's
meeting today.
expressing a similar concern. So this is something that we're having to rethink and address because we do have a boom in residential building right now.
Biggest boom we had.
And and I will say, I'm not defending the builder you're talking about by any stretch of the imagination, but like on a Holt Circle, I don't know the builder, I don't know the grading contractor. It's right next to to where I used to live, next door. And my fiance's mother still lives there. And the problem there is the road is 10 feet wide.
Yeah.
And the site is steep.
I know.
So you can't get off the road. I mean, when you're doing construction, and I know it's inconvenient to people around it, and I know it has to get dealt with, and you can't just close it and then be mean to the neighbor and say, go the other way, because as you know, on that road, some of the driveways, you can only come and go one direction. You can't make a right turn because of the angle coming out. So it's going to be a little tricky in that regard because, I mean, you can't get out of the road. There's no way to get out of the road without falling off the hill. So, until you have a foundation and you can backfill and you can get off the road, it's difficult. You all don't quite have that problem as far as width to the extent they do, but as far as the other ordinances and nuisances, we got to ramp it up. I agree completely.
Appreciate it very much.
Absolutely.
And Chief Holland would like to make a statement.
So, they're correct. We've taken a lot of, calls up there. So what we're doing now, like Captain Holland, I'm chief. I never made captain. Thank y'all for that. What, Keza, I'm tired, 2 hours of sleep last night. So, Captain McCall was saying, what we do now, because, sometimes with calls, and it's in what's called an ops report, one shift, it takes a little bit to get into our system to see an ops report. So if they're not passing it on to the next shift that we came out last night or the night before, whatever that may be, I get the reports of the morning in my box. So either myself or Captain McCall, now we issue those civil fines. And we are up past, I think it's 100, correct me if I'm wrong, 100, 200, 500. We're already up to the 500 mark. So those fines, first offense, 100, that has been issued. 200, it has been issued. And I'm not sure about the 500 because I thankfully went on vacation. So,
$500.
$500 on the third offense. And so it's that 500 from that point on. So if an officer that night does go out there and tells them to stop, obviously we're going to leave. We're not private security. We're not going to stay. So we do need to be called back, which, Ms. Drake and I have talked. So she does know to continue to call us back, continue to come back. So we'll have those both reports that we came. So one day we actually issued $100. I saw the next report. We went back out. We issued a 200. So we are correcting our issue on it. And we've actually up until this past week, we had a few out. We've had an officer up there for speeding. I can't put somebody up there all day long, but in the mornings when we're coming in, when I was told the biggest issue, we're trying to have an officer posted up there.
So, thank you. Chief, can I ask you a quick question? Sorry.
Absolutely.
So let's say you're at the 200 mark or you're at the $500 mark, okay, as far as offenses. And you go up and they're working at 7:30 on a Tuesday. Do you have to warn them and tell them to stop, or you just write the $500 citation?
So we
'Cause that seems-
can, but we have chosen now to write the contractor. And Leah may have wrote, and one of the officers may have actually wrote who was working there,
Mm-hmm.
but, we've started writing the contractor, as more so, I believe, and I think you can attest to that, which is
But
yes.
like I said, if you go up there at 7:30 on a Tuesday and they're already at the $500 mark and you show up and there's crews working again, do you
We
just?
can write them right then.
Well, I mean,
Yes.
that certainly seems like we're at that point.
We are. I can't attest to
Yeah,
whether or not
understand.
while I was gone to Maine, if
I was
if
just
that's
curious
happened.
what you were
We're at the
requiring.
500 mark.
Okay.
And that would just be up to y'all if y'all want to extend that even further than 500.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Mayor,
That's microphone.
not going to cure this, the current situation, but we've had ongoing over the years, a number of developers and builders that have taken advantage of the situation, going back as far as Riverwalk. Even at that point, I was a big proponent of performance bonds. I think we need to look long and hard at performance bonds for contractors and for developers and hold their feet to the fire and have it spelled out if possible. I'm sure Bob could tell us either we can or we can't. If they if we're having to go up and clean the roads or whatever we're having to do, that needs to be coming out of their pockets.
That was my question is, right now we have a acre disturbance. I don't have to have a stormwater design plan until it's an acre.
Acre disturb.
Acre disturbed, right, exactly. Is there a state limit on that?
Not that I'm aware of.
So we could actually make it any disturbance whatsoever because of our topography.
Within, yeah. I mean,
Because of our
I think.
topography, it
I
is
don't-
one of those things that
Yeah.
we're gonna get that.
Yeah.
Because all the flattish land has been built upon. Now we're building on the steeper lands, the lands that were less amenable to normal construction anyway. I think we should think about doing that. And then if they do, I mean, we've got standards in here about how fast it comes off and how much comes off and those kind of things, and make them mitigate that from the beginning, and we would alleviate some of that. Now, the nuisance problem is a different problem, but I'm just wondering if there's some way that we can go ahead and change, because this is under Article 12, was that half acre, an acre. Before that, we don't care about, I mean, we care about sediment, but we don't care about the stormwater that's carrying the sediment, that is actually whether it's carrying their sediment or somebody else's sediment further down the hill.
Well, one thing, Michael, it's the full acre disturbed before retention kicks in, correct?
Yeah.
But is that in commercial? Or is that universal?
If I may, thank you, Mr. Sash, I agree with you, we
Commercial.
are restricted by how much we can build.
Only?
But there's no, I mean, he had no
We used to do it
plan,
in
he
the
didn't go
county.
up there and cut a road and cut trees down. And what's the difference? Because now all that water running off, nothing's soaking in, I can't add on my house because I gotta let the water soak in. But what's the difference? And I agree with you, because we're getting more sticklers, Jackson County.
Well,
They make some changes.
and we're getting more intense rains. They're not the long, slow 3-day drizzles. They're the hour and a half, 2 inches
Right.
in a short period of time, which just exacerbates the problem. So I think we need to talk
Yeah,
about those
I
kind
mean,
of.
like I said, I'm not opposed to figuring that out and seeing what. I mean, we are a unique environment, obviously. I
Yeah,
mean,
not only
obviously.
a lot of water, but a lot of
Yeah.
steep slope.
I know the county's dealing or has been dealing with this very recently. And they were comparing themselves to Brevard and other places, and it's not the
It's
same.
not the same.
It's apples and oranges. So
Right.
I think it's worth looking at without a question, because for these reasons, but also just from a retention, erosion control, but stormwater, obviously. And I know Mount Lori they do have a couple other issues, but it was exacerbated and really brought to light by what's happening above them. But there are some, small undersized pipes and things like that. And that can be dealt with, but no, I'm 100% in favor of at least exploring it and understanding where we go from here and getting some advice from, I don't know if it's half acre, I don't know if it's 6/10, I don't know if it's 3/4, I don't know what the number is. Because if you start talking about a half an acre, most homes are going to require it at that point. But I will say that this is 12% ground coverage critical area, correct? Yeah. So in that case, there's workarounds. I'm not trying to, there are, because you can but it would have helped because they wouldn't have disturbed as much soil. But you can keep it under a half acre, but I'm just
saying.
Yeah, we need to investigate it, absolutely.
If there's no state law that limits us to being able, there's state law that limits us to
Right.
being how much they can disturb,
think-
but not for
Yeah.
stormwater or sediment
Right.
control problems.
I think this subject to me is probably the most important subject in front of us
Going forward.
personally, moving forward, that we need to rectify, whether it's through enforcement and the rule change if we need to. But I think erosion control, water control, yes, we have more houses, and I don't see that. We're not going to stop it unless you buy the house or buy the property next to you and combine it with your lot, which most people either won't or can't. So I'm 100%. Yeah, I'm with you.
And addressing these issues, as I hear this conversation, we're talking about workshop
Yep,
processing.
absolutely.
I think so.
Okay.
Absolutely. Agreed.
Very good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mhm. We really appreciate it.
Okay. All right, our next item on the agenda would be the Mirror Lake dredging project update. Pat Gleason, Mirror Lake Improvement Association.
Mr. Mayor, Town Board, thank you very much. I tell you, that Mount Lori crowd is a tough one to follow, so I'm going to do my best. I was sitting back there trying to put my speech to a rap song, and I couldn't quite make that happen. But if you'll indulge me, I will read directly from my teleprompter here. I'm kind of like Trump. I tend to go off on tangents, so I want to stay focused with you guys tonight. I'm really pleased to be here tonight. I've been a volunteer with the Mirror Lake Improvement Association now for 5 years, so it's kind of my anniversary. So, and along with our board of directors, I believe Mike King is here tonight. I don't think Tom's here. We've got a lot of friends of Mirror Lake here tonight, residents of Mirror Lake, and on behalf of all of them, I really need to extend my thanks to the town of Highlands. Because you guys, for the 5 years that I've been involved, have totally encouraged us to put something together, try and raise some money, try and come up with a plan. For those of you who are unaware or maybe just landed in Highlands, Mirror Lake has needed to be dredged for many, many years. So I'm here tonight to update you on the progress for the phase 1 part of our dredging plan. And then I'm going to turn the floor over to the McGill and Associates crew, I believe, if that's right, Josh, to kind of talk more about phases 2, 3, and possibly 4. To refresh your memories, our association was challenged really by the mayor, who sat with me and said, can we get some local vestiture in this project, when he first saw the plan? So we immediately went to work to raise some money. Over a relatively short period of time, maybe a year and a half or so, we were able to raise the necessary funds to do phase 1. Phases 2, 3, and possibly 4 will be facilitated thanks to the $5 million grant we received from the state of North Carolina last fall. Phase 1, just to be clear, is a swath or a dredge that stretches 250 yards approximately upstream from the Mirror Lake Bridge, taking out those small islands that have developed over time, and 250 yards downstream from the bridge, basically to about the second bay downstream towards the dam, taking out the islands and the shallowness that has occurred along that stretch. Phases 2 and 3 are as follows. Phase 2 is a stretch up the Mill Creek watershed towards the bridge that Bob was talking about. Our plan has never changed for phase 2, and it has always included an 11-foot wide channel, and we're hoping to get to 4 feet deep along that stretch. It does not include the large island that has existed from sediment over the last 20 years, where I guess Bob used to swim. So, but it does include a channel down Calisaja Road all the way up to the bridge. Phase 3 picks up where phase 1 left off, and if there's enough money, we'll go as far as we can up towards Big Pine Acres and downstream to the dam itself. Of course, I yield to the McGill people because they'll have oversight over those 3 phases. So without delay, I'm very pleased to announce our 8-point update. I tried to get to 10 and do a top 10, but I couldn't get to 10, so I only have 8. So here they are. Number 1, after 9 months of sending water samples from Mirror Lake for testing to the state, last Friday, the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality has fully approved our samples and has issued us a water quality permit. Number 2, that permit was immediately forwarded to the Army Corps of Engineers. Yesterday morning, we received the news that the Corps has approved and issued Riversand a full permit, which clears the way for us to begin dredging Mirror Lake in accordance with our phase 1 drawings.
That's the core.
The Corps.
That's a first.
That's a first. We received that permit yesterday. Number 3, the Corps permit is without significant restrictions. There's no trout moratorium, and it's been cleared by North Carolina Fish and Wildlife and the EPA.
So you can be dredging then through the winter then, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I'll speak to that in a minute, Brian. Number 4, we've authorized Riversand to immediately forward both permits to Josh Ward. They're going to do that tomorrow, Josh, and to McGill and Associates, along with full drawings of phase 1, where we plan to place our dewatering tubes, etc. So you'll have those plans tomorrow, Josh. At Josh's request, we have presented temporary easements for signature to the 10 property owners along the Mirror Lake shoreline and the Dobson Ridge subdivision. Those easements either have been signed or are being signed as we speak. A couple of them are out for digital signature, but we'll have all those easements, Josh. I'll hold them, and I'm happy to provide you with copies. Next week, the Mirror Lake Improvement Association will enter into a contract with Riversand Inc. for the phase 1 plan, exactly as we submitted it to the town of Highlands 3 years ago. Number 7, we will serve public notice in next Thursday's paper for the removal of canoes and kayaks from the Mirror Lake Bridge canoe ramp area, which we affectionately call the Mirror Lake Yacht Club. We'll post a sign on this property giving those boat owners 30 days to remove their watercraft. We will probably come to the town of Highlands and request that they consider letting us store a few unclaimed canoes up there behind the dog park in that open lot if possible. And finally, number 8. And this is probably the biggie. River Sanding told me this afternoon that they have one job that they're going to be finishing up in the next 30 days. And good Lord willing, they would like to begin dredging Mirror Lake in late September or early October. So, thank you for your time, and I'll take any questions that you guys might have.
Thank you, Pat. And I want to express our appreciation, all the hard work you've done to get to this point. And let me start addressing, the concerns that were expressed in public comment. First of all, if you remember, and this is we're going back. I remember saying, people expected the town to do this. We don't own Mirror Lake. And we were looking for leadership, and it came through with your work with the River Sand, and y'all had a plan. And I remember seeing that plan and said, now we're getting somewhere. There's a plan, a doable plan, possibly. So I remember attending several of your annual homeowners association meeting where you put out the plan and took questions. And then you came to the town board maybe once or twice sharing that with our town board. And then, if you remember, I was able to get our local legislative delegation at Mirror Lake. We shared those plans with them too, saying this is what the plan is. Can you help us? And lo and behold, they were able to fund $5 million. So that's where we are. And that's, what is possible, with the contributions that the association will make. They're putting skin in the game and getting phase 1 done. And then we'll keep going until all of that state money has been gone. And just to clarify, because it's state funds, the town is operating as the grant agent. And we have to go through the state, procurement system, the engineering, all of those things that are required by the state. We have to do that. But, I'm really delighted that we're at this point. I know people have been saying, why don't y'all go ahead and start dredging? And I was talking to Josh today. I said, anytime you're working with an American public waterway, a river or lake, the testing, the permitting, everything that you have to do is just unbelievable what you have to do to get to a point of actually removing the material. So thank you very much. And I'll open it up to the board if y'all have any questions.
I had a quick question, Pat. I must be getting old. I don't remember. Could you just tell me remind me what phase 1 was? You said 250 yards, both above and below, but where do the dredgings go? Is that where we build an island?
So River Sand will, in the details of their contract,
Proposal, yeah.
they will specify the dredging systems that they'll be using in order to get the sediment out of the bottom of the lake, where they will be putting it to what they call dewater. They've got to set up these riparian tubes that the sediment goes into and then dewaters the clean water back into the lake. Once they're completely dried out, they cut those bags, and we're working with Bryson Grading to haul that sediment away. And the River Sand people already have designated 2 or 3 sites that will take that sediment as fill or whatever. We tried to do it a few years ago when Highlands Falls Country Club redid their golf course, because we said, man, we got as much fill as you guys want. But our timing didn't work that way. Did that answer your question?
So most of that sediment will be
Hauled
distributed
off.
offsite.
Correct. Correct.
Any other questions, Pat?
To your point, Mr. Mayor, and one thing that you hit on, our private fundraising, no pun intended, but it's kind of dried up. And there's a lot of people out there that are kind of sitting on their wallets to see if this is really going to happen. So I think once we start, it'll free us up to go on our second round of fundraising, Because as you know from our master plan, we do plan to build out the yacht club and a park downstream that you can paddle back and forth to. So
Okay.
it's all good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. In a related item, we have the Mirror Lake Dredging Project Engineering Contract. And Josh, we have folks from McGill here.
We have Joel Starro with McGill with us tonight. If he would come up, ask him a few questions. You have in your packet, if you recall, we signed the original contract for a preliminary scope of engineering, which they have done. It's in your packet, the memo. It's quite lengthy. We met with the Mirror Lake Improvement Association folks. We met with River Sands and kind of tried to get everybody on the same page where they were at. Obviously, as the mayor said, with state and federal funding that we have gotten, there's going to be more hoops to jump through to be able to get approval to start phase 2, 3, and 4. So we're at the point where we need to sign, we need the board to sign a new contract with McGill that will carry us through design and into the bid documentation part of it. And then we've also got construction management. So they had sent out the contract probably a month ago. We looked at it, talked to Joel. My concern was at the time that it had been months and months of waiting on permitting through the state and through the Army Corps. My concern was at the time is signing a large contract for engineering if phase 1 hadn't got off the ground yet. So I'm excited to hear tonight that they do have their permits and are moving forward. I asked Joel to come up with a partial contract in case you guys felt the same way I did as far as the permitting. And they did come up with that, cutting out the construction management part of it, which saved a pretty decent amount of money. So there's going to be, in your packet, there's 2 different contracts for engineering. One of them is full engineering with construction management. One cuts that construction management out. So you can go either way with that. Bob has reviewed both of those contracts, and he can answer any questions as well that you might have of him. But I did want Joel to kind of give an overview of where they're at right now and a construction schedule that's also in your packet.
And before Joel starts, I want to emphasize, this is not money coming from the tax base or the budget of Highlands. This is the money allocated, built in any construction project or grant that you have in the state. You have to do the engineering and so forth, and that's
Exactly.
just a part
That's
of
right.
the grant funds.
You have to
Go
go through
ahead,
the
Joe.
procurement and all the towns have to do that.
Yeah.
And if I can ask also, as we go into it, I don't want to delay the discussion, but the 2 contracts, regardless of what happens, once it gets permitted and we start, there still will be construction oversight. It's just what we're being asked is whether or not to agree to all of it or agree to everything up until we get permitted, correct?
That's correct.
Right.
So eventually it's going to come back to the number we're talking about and the big number. It's just,
Yes, it will.
Right.
got it, understood.
Yeah, the thinking there would be if we run into a lot of issues with the regulatory permits that are pretty onerous for this particular type of work, then, hopefully the project does go forward, but you haven't committed to the construction end of it until we know it's going to go forward.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. The memorandum that's in your packet pretty well summarizes our work to date. And I was really happy to hear Pat and his remarks about the phase 1 project, because we've been waiting on, we've been speaking with Riversand ourselves and have gotten some information from them, but now the plans and all the rest of the stuff will come together and we'll be able to better scope out, the actual phase 2 and phase 3, maybe phase 4 as well. So Pat did a good job on stating exactly what phase 1 is and then 2 and 3, but we won't know exactly what that is until we get into the design and see what, quantities. We'll have to get some estimates on how much the town can afford in this $5 million grant, how many yards of material that can be dredged. But the good news with Riversand is they got their polymer approved, which is a coagulant, and when they hydraulically dredge this material out of the lake, they'll add this polymer, which will help, dry it up. And then, of course, the water goes back, and then they'll have the material that they can take. So this polymer has to be approved by the state, and that was part of their permit that they recently got. So, yeah, we're excited to be a part of the project. I think I remember Mirror Lake when Buck Trott was the mayor, and I actually came up and met with him a little bit in the early years. I guess that was the early 2000s, but it's really nice to see this get to this point.
Okay.
And I'd be happy to answer any questions. The
Joel,
memorandum's
could you
in
go
your
over the
packet.
schedule if we approve the contract tonight and got you guys going, what would the schedule be?
We've got the schedule in your packet. We would begin the work that we have to do to get the permit, and we're anticipating all of 2025 to probably, depending on what we need from the Corps, if this gets to be a complicated project, and it probably will, there'll be an individual permit, which requires a lot more scrutiny on the part of the Corps. If all that goes well and we can get the permit by say the middle or toward the end of 2025, we would actually begin the dredging in early 2026 or late 2025, however that plays out. So we would still be about a year and a half away from construction on the phase 2 and phase 3. And it could be that we just combine the phase 2 and 3, depending on what we determine during design, because it could be the area above the bridge where you get up to Mill Creek, the confluence with Colasaja. It could be that's a mechanical dredging, kind of a clamshell bucket sort of thing, as opposed to the hydraulic dredging that River Sand's proposing. But we'll make that determination once we understand the morphology of the stream and how much sediment there actually is embedded in it.
And then you also have to do things like a land survey and a three-dimensional survey of the actual lake bottom.
Yeah,
where you're going to dredge.
that's part of our scope, sure.
Okay.
Surveying, and then of course the easements is a key part of it too, because Pat's, I think 20 easements he mentioned. There'll be a lot more easements for this phase 2 and 3. So we have some assistance planned for that as well.
Okay. Any other questions?
So you want a motion to approve?
Yes, I would entertain a
one or the
motion.
other of them?
Bob, would you like to go over any part of the contract
Yes,
that
Bob.
we have in the packet?
Looked at it.
So I have reviewed both versions. I think it's very standard, typical, nothing that I find objectionable. The big difference is, as you know, the shortened version just keeps out, at least for the time being, the construction management. But I have no issues, and it's, I think, your call as to whether to move forward with the surveying and preliminary engineering, design, permitting, and bidding, and stop there and come along later with construction management, or approve it all at one time now.
Yeah, can I ask one question about that? The section 6 payment for basic services shows survey and preliminary engineering, design and permitting, and then the other one includes bidding. So if we go with the partial, does that include the bidding process?
No, the bidding would be part of the construction management.
Understand.
Right.
Just making sure. Okay.
So the first would take us up to that point.
Correct. And then
coincidentally, River Sand being a contractor, they're eligible to bid on the project.
Right.
As well. So
Understand.
they probably might be competitive since they've already done phase 1 at that point.
Well,
what you're saying is they'd have to bid on that.
But you do have to take bids on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
If the construction contract's over $100,000, you have to take bids.
Whereas the homeowners association, it's their money. They can decide.
They can do whatever they want. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'd like to make a motion to approve the 49500, which is the partial, and then add the bidding and construction if we go to that point. I mean, hopefully when we go to that point. So
I'll second that.
Got a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. Signify by saying aye. Thank you. Thank you so
Thanks.
much. All right. The next item on our agenda, Oak Street redevelopment streetscape request. Hank Raw. Hank, thank you for enduring the long meeting.
It rekindled the old days. This is Chuck Kreckelberg. He's the architect for the project. I'm here representing the owners. Mac and John Mack is here with his team on the back row. And John's family's been coming up here for many, many years. They're seasonal residents, and they had bought the Scudder's building. I think you all are aware of that, and they're turning it into quite a project. And part of that project, and we talked about it last time, and I'll try to be brief, is that we're looking at doing streetscape on Oak Street because the building fronts both on Main Street and Oak Street. And Oak Street, as you know, has been an alley of trash cans and recycling, and so really try to the area is changing a little bit with the ABC store going in, and now with the MAC project, and so we're really looking to improve the way that the area looks. And I think that you all at the last meeting, in general, really thought that was a good idea. And I had I was given the charge of making sure and getting with Lamar, producing the working drawings and finding out where the utilities were underground. We already knew where they were above ground, of course. And so we've done that. And the drawings that were sent to you all, I think we can pull them up, but I don't think we need to do that unless y'all want to. And so it does there are water lines that impact the planters to some degree. That's the bad news. The good news is that there's still a way to get trees in all the planters, and we're looking at smaller trees than what were presented earlier. And the plans that I have also included a species of tree that we've decided that we want to change that as well at this point. And so what we're looking at now is on the MAC side. I guess that's the south side of Oak Street. We're looking at putting in fringe trees, and they're native trees. They grow to be about 15 feet, maybe 20 max if they're out in the open space, but being contained in a planter, they likely will not get any larger than 15 feet. They have white blooms, and they have a very small fruit, half an inch or smaller, and it's not a prolific fruit that stains the concrete and the brick and that sort of thing. And so we're looking at a smaller tree on that side, and we're also looking at smaller trees on the opposite side, the north side of Oak Street, over where the Playhouse is, and looking to add to use willow oaks. Thought it was appropriate to have oak trees on Oak Street. And these are street trees that are tried and true, that have been used for street trees for eons, and so I think they grow to around 25 to 35 feet tall, and so they're a small shade tree basically, and it looks like we do have enough room in the planters to get those trees in as well. And so if you all have any, I have handouts, and then we can also put it on the screen of information on those trees. And if you have any questions, let me know. And so what we're looking to do tonight is to get approval for the streetscape. We can always still kind of tweak the plant material if y'all need to, but we're hoping to get approval tonight to move forward so we can start thinking about contracts for the streetscape on the MAX side.
Okay. So you're looking for, Hank, say that again, that the Playhouse side, the town would obviously be responsible for those plantings.
Yes.
And I think last time we were talking, we wanted, or the sense of urgency, I think, was that we wanted those trees to match the ones that you were gonna plant on your side of the street, correct? And now that they're two different species, is there that sense of urgency, I guess, or is that something, do we want to do it all together? I'd like to see it done all together, but
Because of the overhead lines is the reason for the species change.
yeah.
Yeah. To address that, yeah, we can't really plant large shade trees on one side.
Right.
But you know, for environmental reasons, you know, and having shade trees is the way to go for sustainability and those kind of issues.
I like
for
the
town.
fringe tree. I think that's an interesting.
Yeah, I think it's both of them are native trees and they're pollinators and you know considered pollinators, and I think it's for the community. They're really good species to use. Yeah, and they both. Oh, yeah. And to address your issue about the size, both of them have yellow fall color, so it won't look so different in the fall.
Lamar? Any?
Hey, plants there, you change. I made the comments about the 12-inch water main on the north side, and we have actually overhead electric both sides. My concern with the large growing tree with the overhead line. I was also concerned with the large root ball water line and one. So what I'm understanding is you changed it again. You're proposing small tree on the south side, which won't conflict with the one overhead wire.
That's correct.
Then on the north side, change the tree to get 25%.
On the north side, they could get larger than that.
Got an overhead wire conflict with the flare that would enter the police station and play that, get the tree that large. And then at the flares, near the entrance to the old fire department, so that we indicate the police store and the next flare towards town hall, that's the conflict with the underground water.
That's, yes.
Large root ball. So still that issue of large trees on the north side with the water line that at two locations, overhead wire.
Yeah, you know, I mean, one of the things about street trees is they stay dwarfed because they're in a planter and looking at, you know, some of these companies that produce street trees as for their business, they keep the root balls really compact. It doesn't mean they will get larger in the future, but you can plant them readily without really taking a lot of space. They've got fibrous roots straight from the dig when they bring them in, as opposed to having to have a larger root ball. I'll just say the trees that are on the north side are really the towns. Well, they're all the towns because they're on the town property. But as far as the Macs are concerned, we really would like to maybe go ahead and get permission to create the planters on the south side. And as in terms of what species of tree that the town might put in over by the playhouse, I mean that's would be up for grabs. For what you think you might want to do. I personally feel like the willow oak would work in getting 25, 30 feet tall with those lines. I mean, I'm not sure what's going to happen to the playhouse, and those lines could be moved. So there's a whole future out there to figure that out. I think what might go on that side.
Any other, could the fringe tree be applied on that side?
Why don't you go ahead and, yes, I mean, there's no reason why we couldn't, as Brian was wondering why we couldn't have both trees excuse me, the same species of trees on both sides.
Yeah, but for tonight, we don't need to decide on, let's say, our side, so to speak. Just worried about the other side.
Yeah.
So, but we do have kind of a layout design that works with everything that, I think it looks great. I'd love to see more of that happen. Like I had mentioned before, the ABC store is going to be doing the same thing. So street tree
Well, that would be.
species will be, that one doesn't have overhead lines to deal with. So that has a little more flexibility.
Tie it all together with that.
Yeah.
That
But we
12,
also, but we do have the water line.
the 12-inch line is probably in that,
It's definitely an issue.
in that
So,
area.
to be determined, but
Yeah.
that's coming too with multiple street trees. So that's going to change the character of that, almost that entire block. There's still other places, but I mean, I like it. I think it looks great. I mean, Hank always does a good job, so I'm in favor. I'd like to make a motion to approve that side of the street.
Second that.
Second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I
Thank you.
really appreciate it.
Look at possibly the county, southern street too.
Yeah.
Do we need to know what's going to come
That will be
after the
coming up.
playhouse first?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have to address
Yes.
Yeah.
That might be a construction site or
Right.
or a demo site or something.
that. Yeah. All right. Our next item, the Houston House Property Topological Graphical Survey. Commissioner Staley.
Okay, this came up, Commissioner Weller and I had, met with one of the representatives from the Boys and Girls Club, a few weeks ago, and I met with them again, 2 weeks ago. One of the things they had asked, was that obviously this is not approved by the town quite yet, but one of the things in their sites and one of the things that I know the mayor's had conversations with them about is potentially one day gaining use of the Houston House property for a future for a future facility there. So, and that's something I think that I think we would all agree that the community really needs, and I personally am all in favor of. And I think I'd hope that when the time comes to, the town will be a major player in that. And so one of the things that they had asked for was a survey of that property. So just they can begin to look at, how that would work and the slope and how it could work for them. So I guess I'm asking the town board to consider the town paying for a topo survey that we can give them to start their plan.
And do we have any rough estimate of the cost?
I know, a couple $1,000, I'm sure.
So I talked to Sam Sprinkle that had done the survey originally, and he said, that he could get to it. And it looks like he didn't give me exact number at $1,300. And we've got that in the rec budget. If you guys approve it tonight, we can move forward with that.
And it's off, go ahead.
I'll say, I think we're not hurt by going and doing it, because if the town does something in the future anyway, we're gonna need topographical, so we're not losing any money if we go and get it done now.
So we didn't do that when we got Paul's design?
No. it was
Not
just-
a topo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, preliminary.
It would still have to be done if we follow through.
Okay. I didn't know
So
if it had been done.
We're going to need it for the erosion control plan.
Exactly.
So I'll make a motion that we start,
Is this a 2 foot or a 5 foot or a?
2 foot,
2 foot?
2 foot contour.
And what'd you say about trees?
I would locate all the trees that are
Yeah.
greater than 12 inches, because if you can shift something and save one of those big oaks down there,
Absolutely.
absolutely. So I'd say also 2 foot contours and all trees 12 inches and larger.
And actually, I think Sam said that if you were going to do it with that site, you could go ahead and do 1 foot.
If he's doing that for
That's what he said
1,300,
he would do.
jump on it.
Do it.
Yeah.
Seems low.
You have a motion to approve the survey?
Yes, I'll make a motion that we direct Josh to, line up and get a survey of the Houston House
Okay.
property.
Second.
Got a second? Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please raise your hand, signify by saying aye. Thank
Aye.
you. We'll move forward with that. It's been a long night, but we're at the end of the agenda, so I will entertain a motion.
I make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor? We're adjourned. Thank you very much. Thank you, Bob.
What's that? Yeah, I didn't know it was quite that small. We always have engineering on, so they had it. Yeah, that's a lot of